Sit! I'd like to talk about this Star Wars catastrophe that's happening right now. I haven't done reviews in a while. I used to do them with my friend years ago. Then he had a kid. You know, things happen, you grow up. It's hard to find time to do stuff like this and then edit it. But this is just, it's breaking my heart. This shouldn't be happening. It's a Star Wars movie. It's a Star Wars movie. You know, they're billion-dollar movies. I don't want to hear no bullshit about fatigue because, you know, you could pump out a different Marvel movie every month and that movie will still make $800 to $1 billion. So I don't think it's necessarily all fatigue. I'm sure it has a little hand in it, but so why is this happening? Now, I get it. This movie had a lot of bad, you know, press behind it between the directors getting fired, you know, because Kathleen Kennedy didn't like their vision of a funnier Star Wars movie, to Alden Ehrenreich not being universally loved by everyone to play this titular character, especially with his only other big blockbuster movie that put him on the map being Hail Caesar, and he plays an actor that doesn't know how to act in the movie. So I could see why, you know, people were nervous, and I was nervous. I didn't think this movie was going to be that good at all, but I'm a Star Wars fan, so of course I'm going to go and see it. Coming out of this movie, I was in love. I really love this movie. This movie has flaws. It does. Every movie has flaws. Even Infinity Wars, I'll argue, has a fuck ton of flaws. My biggest problem with that movie is that it doesn't feel like a whole movie. It feels like a movie cut in half. And a lot of people argue like, oh, well, that's how it's supposed to be. And it's, no, that's fine. I get it. I get that that's what they were going for. But a movie to me is only a masterpiece if it's a complete package. It's like getting the spaghetti without the meatballs. It's just, I just don't feel like it was complete. There's something missing there, and now I have to wait a year. And now in the future, when I want to see this whole Infinity War unfold, I'm going to have to watch 4 to 5 hours worth of material just to get the whole thing. So, like, anyway, movies have flaws. In this movie, it did have flaws. There was some things I found were a little unnecessary, but it's not bad. It is not bad enough to warrant a $103 million opening, which... It's amazing that we live in a world where we consider that bad, but it's happening. So I want to discuss a little bit. Let me start off with saying that I think this is the best Star Wars movie in this new era of movies. I know I'm going to get backlash for that. I'd like everyone to take it with a grain of salt, my opinion, and I'm entitled to that. But the reason behind that is it's innovative. It's, you know, The Force Awakens, when it came out, it was everything I wanted in a Star Wars movie. It didn't really take any risks. You know, J.J. Abrams kept it pretty safe. You know, he gave fans what they wanted, and it was smart, but it didn't do anything innovative. The only innovative thing they did was, spoiler, skip ahead 10 seconds if you don't want to know this, which I don't know why you wouldn't already, but when they kill Han Solo, that was the only new thing they really did. Otherwise, everything else was pretty much a New Hope, just retold in a newer package and newer characters. There's actually a video you can find on YouTube where J.J. Abrams filmed a scene with Rey flying the Millennium Falcon that is identical to the way George Lucas shot Han Solo flying the Millennium Falcon. So he clearly took cues from the New Hope because he wanted to keep it as close to the original as possible, which is fine, and I walked out and I still loved it. Then Rogue One came out, and the press leading up to it was, not the press, all the talk leading up to it was pretty negative. I mean, they had to do a lot of reshoots, and there was a lot of problems with it, and I didn't really give a shit about how they got the plans to the Death Star. That was never really anything that I sat there and I was like, I wonder how that happened. Like, it just didn't cross my mind. And then I walked out of that movie, and I was really surprised. They took a lot of risks making a movie like that, and it worked. You know, they made almost $1 billion. They made over $1 billion, and I just don't know why Solo is tanking so hard. Now, for me, Han Solo was always my favorite character, and I think that's in part because he's the most relatable character in the original trilogy, in my opinion. Not that he's close to being realistic, like smugglers, laser guns. I get it, but to me, those movies were always, Han Solo is us. He's the human, and we're watching this god transform into a bigger god. You know, we're watching this kid go from the one to, you know, a Jedi Knight, and it was always I always enjoyed watching him because he was the one without the power. So it's kind of like that would be me if I was in this world. And Han Solo was always my favorite, and the relationship he has with Chewie was always just something so strong with me. I actually named my dog after him, Chewie. It's a brindle boxer. Uh, anyway, so that's why I was like so excited to see this movie coming out, and I see so many people saying, "Oh, we don't need this. You know, why are we getting a Han Solo movie? No one cares. This and that. Yada yada yada." But we don't need 90% of the movies we get in the world anyway. We don't need an Ant-Man movie. We didn't need Rogue One, you know? These are movies that we don't need, but it's things that clearly they've seen that some fans want, so they're trying to deliver a fun movie for everybody. Me personally, I loved this idea. Han Solo was my favorite, and I always wanted to know how he met Chewbacca, and why Chewbacca owed him this debt, and why is he the guy that shoots first, and why does he have trust issues? I'm not saying everyone needs to care, because you don't, because everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But me personally, I really cared. And now that I got it, I couldn't be happier because it's so good, in my opinion. I think it's, like I said, one of the best in this new era, and no one's seeing it. Now, if you're a Star Wars fan, why wouldn't you go out and see this movie? And that's where I'm going to come into The Last Jedi. Now, I think that Kathleen Kennedy is a fucking idiot. I'll start off by saying that. I think she doesn't really know what people want. She's trying to find a groove. And I think the whole thing with The Last Jedi was not so much Rian Johnson's fault. You know what? I can't hate him completely because all he wanted to do was come in and shake things up, which is dangerous because you're taking a franchise decades old that fans love, and you're changing the whole fucking formula. You're changing everything. You're throwing everyone a curveball. And a franchise this old, we love it for a certain reason, and that doesn't work. Like, I understand trying to be a little innovative, make new ideas, but, like, the directions that he took were just terrible. Like, everything he did was terrible. The Last Jedi was a trash movie. I'll argue with this about anybody. The only cool scene worthy of rewatching that movie you could watch for 3 minutes on YouTube, and that's when Rey and Kylo Ren fight those Knights in Red for that little battle after, spoiler, Snoke dies. But everything outside of that, the way they handled Luke, everything, garbage. Garbage. And I think at least 50% of the reason why people aren't seeing this movie is because they're taking a stand against Kathleen Kennedy. But this guy, this Alden Ehrenreich, poured his heart out into this role. Now, that was another thing that I remember hearing about this movie, is that people were scared because they heard there was an acting coach on set to teach them how to act. And so there was just a lot of bad press about this movie. But again, there was a lot of bad press about Rogue One, and it still made $1 billion. So that can't, in my opinion, be the reason why no one's seeing it. And I can tell you with faith and the utmost certainty that the acting coach was not there because he didn't know how to act. It was because he was doing his best to act more like Harrison Ford to make everybody else happy. He didn't have to do that. You know, I have a Stardust account, and I've seen a lot of people talking about how he doesn't act in the beginning of the movie like the original Han Solo, when not for nothing, but everybody watching this right now, haven't always acted the way you are. You've gone through some shit. You've evolved. You've changed into the person you are. You know, he starts off this movie innocent. Well, not really innocent, but not this, you know, he still trusts people. You know, he hasn't killed anyone. He doesn't know Chewie yet, and he has to evolve into this person. So I could have really cared less if he acted completely like Harrison Ford, but everything down to the mannerisms, the way he, like, curls his lips, and believe me, I love this character, so I recognize the Harrison Ford mannerisms. He nails it, and the whole thing with him and Chewbacca's awesome. He gets his shine in this movie almost more than any other character. Donald Glover encaptures the role of Lando, and it's just perfect. And, you know, Daenerys in it, I can't remember her actual name, but she's fantastic in it too. And the movie doesn't have a lot of stakes because, I mean, obviously you know no one's going to die, but everyone knew the stakes in Rogue One. Everyone knew they were going to die, so I refuse to believe that no one's seeing this because there's no stakes. I'm going to relate this movie to Ant-Man. So you get all these Avengers movies, and they're all leading up to something big. They're all progressively getting darker and darker. and the weight of the world is falling on their shoulders. And every time you go into a movie, it's like you know something's going to happen that's going to set up the next movie. And then you get Ant-Man, and it's just like one of those movies where you can kick back and relax, and there's not all this stress, and you can just have fun. And it's a heist movie, and that is this. This is that movie of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and yet Ant-Man was so successful. We didn't need an Ant-Man movie, but it made money. This is a Star Wars movie. You'd all be lying if you said you didn't like Han Solo. I don't care if you think we need this movie or not. This is still a worthy Star Wars movie to go and see. This is still worth your buck. It is still fun. You're right, there's not a lot of stakes, but there's a lot of action, good action, it's comedy. I think that the relationship between him and the girl that plays Daenerys in Game of Thrones is fantastic. I love Woody Harrelson. Good comedic elements. The movie has a lot going for it, and no one's seeing it. And like I said, I think it's a huge part in the fans taking a stand against Kathleen Kennedy. And you're hurting this franchise, because now this kid that signed on to play, it's his second role. This kid got so lucky getting this role, and he worked his heart out in this role, and now he's probably going to be terminated. They're probably never going to make a movie again. Maybe there are some of you that are like, good, fuck Han Solo, but then you're not a true Star Wars fan. I don't care. I'll argue that all damn day. You're not a true Star Wars fan if you could sit there and say, fuck Han Solo. Yeah, we didn't need this movie, but we don't need a lot of movies. But they're making them to please us. It's meant to be fun. Yeah, I get it. People are saying, oh, it's a cash grab, and it's for merchandising and toys and this and that, and it's so much more than that. I mean, if you love Han Solo as much as I do, go out and see this and support it, because they're going to cancel this, and they're going to cancel his contract, and you're never going to see this again. And unfortunately, the movie does set up a little bit of a cliffhanger in case there was a sequel, and now I'm afraid I'm never going to get to see it, because people are too busy sticking their head up their ass to revolt against Kathleen Kennedy, which, believe me, I agree, I hate her, and I want her to step down, and someone that actually cares about the franchise take her place. But she didn't do anything wrong with this movie. If you're gonna stand up and revolt against her, then do it for The Last Jedi. Or, no, do it for the last Star Wars in that canon trilogy. Don't do it for this. This movie isn't there to pick up the pieces for The Last Jedi. It's there to cleanse your palate. And that's exactly what this movie's there to do. It's there to cleanse your palate. If you're gonna take a stand against Kathleen Kennedy, do it for the last movie, because nothing's more of a slap in the face than seeing that no one's getting pre-sale tickets for this movie. There's no reason to trash this movie and not go and see it. It's an exciting movie in a galaxy far, far away that's not part of the original trilogy. You could just sit back and enjoy this. It is absolutely worth the money. It really breaks my heart that no one's going to see this movie, and it's so good. It's better than The Last Jedi. Do yourself a favor. Take this weekend. There's no barbecues, no Memorial Day, no holidays, and go and see it. Or go and see it the following weekend, or the weekend after that, or whenever you get free time. But don't refuse to see this movie. Don't be one of those people that waits until it comes out on DVD or Redbox or on demand, and then you rent it and you go, this is actually pretty good. And then by then, it's too late. You'll never get to see another one. I'm telling you, as a huge diehard Star Wars fan, it is worth the ticket. Don't let this movie be a complete box office disaster. Let's pull another The Greatest Showman. And what I mean by that was the movie The Greatest Showman came out, and it got off to a horrible start, but good word of mouth brought it around, and it wound up becoming super profitable. Let's try and do that with Han Solo, because it absolutely deserves it. So I was going to post this video last night, and then as I was posting it, I got into a conversation with someone on YouTube about our opinions of this movie. And the opinion was, I was on Breaking Banter's YouTube channel, listening to his reaction to the fact that this movie's bombing, and someone said in the comments that people need to stop being salty that the movie's bombing, and that it's bombing because, Lando was pansexual, and that, no one wants to see a Star Wars movie where we have feminist robots and this and that. And first of all, in no situation is it ever okay to offend anybody because of their own opinion. So to sit there and tell people they're being, pussies and crybabies and this and that, and it's just like, there's no need for that. If you love something, you fight for it. That's what you do. And then for other people to come in there and make fun of them for fighting for what they care about is just rude. But anyway, if this kid actually saw the movie, he would know that there's not a lick of evidence that Lando is pansexual. Now, I'm not saying I care if he was, because I don't.
but it wasn't there, so that's a lie that he's saying that the movie's bombing because of that. And the same thing with the robot. I mean, I get where he's saying the whole feminism thing, but the robot's not really a feminist. She's just against mistreating her race, her kind, and she's only in the movie for like a total of 10 minutes anyway, out of a 2-hour and 22-minute runtime. So it just seems a little ridiculous that he's saying the movie's failing because of that. All that really tells me is that he didn't go and see this movie, which is the problem I'm trying to address here, that people are forming opinions about this movie before actually seeing it. We live in a world where someone can go see a movie and say it's bad, and now 4,000 other people see that and they're like, I'm not going to see it. We live in a world where people can't make their own decisions because the average person might not enjoy it. They might think it's not all there, but maybe the movie's only made for the die-hard Star Wars fans. And those are the people that are going to love it, but they're not going to see it now because one critic says this. And I just think that people need to really go and form their own opinions. First of all, Ron Howard is the director of this movie. He took over the reign after the other directors were fired. He is a huge Star Wars fan. He was really close with George Lucas and saw how this movie was made. He's seen all of the movies. He has a strong love for it. So they didn't just get some nobody that doesn't give a shit about the franchise to come in and clean up after the original directors. They got someone that loves this, and he put his heart out into this as well. Do me a favor and please just form your own opinion. I mean, you all clearly did it for Rogue One. Maybe some of you were disappointed. Maybe some of you weren't. I personally think it was better than Rogue One. I personally think it was better than The Last Jedi. I think it's pretty close with The Force Awakens, but I think it takes up just a little bit of a notch. Don't be a part of the problem. Be a part of the solution. Let's turn this movie around and try and get it a little bit profitable. A little bit more.